Today on In Grace, we're in Saudi Arabia, climbing the real Mount Sinai. The story of Exodus is huge. Millions of people freed by mega miracles. And then the granddaddy of all miracles, the Red Sea parts, and Israel is saved, born as a nation. Then God leads them to a series of encampments, bringing them closer and closer to the Promised Land. Before the Promised Land, God wants to bring them to a special place, His mountain in the desert. There, they'll receive the law and set up the tabernacle. Today, we're going to search for and hopefully ascend what is possibly the real Mount Sinai. Okay, so you said we're going to zigzag up this thing. And get
we're going to go kind of up. There's an animal trail kind of partway up here, and we follow these piles of rocks. So these little piles you see, that's kind of marking the animal trail. The shepherds, even some of us, we start piling up the rocks, so kind of marks the trail. You look for the animal hoof prints and their dung to follow the dung trail up.
Okay, whatever works. You know, usually you're following breadcrumbs, but you know.
Well, the donkey and the sheep, or goats probably going up here.
Okay, so we have climbed up higher. You know you're higher because I can't see the air anymore. The view is spectacular. I am tired, but I don't know. This is still worth it, you know? And I know we're not even, halfway to the halfway, but you got the adventure, the exertion, you know. If you want to do something worthwhile, you got to work for it. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so little progress report.
Yeah.
We've been going about an hour, a little under an hour. You're saying we're going there?
Yeah, we're going on the other side, but we're going to take this route to the left.
Okay.
Slowly making our way up the side of this face of Sinai.
It's been not horrible to come up this far.
Yeah.
Is it going to get steeper as we go?
There's a certain parts that will be steeper, for sure.
Okay.
A little slower.
This is very special, though, to be attempting this climb. Appreciate you guiding us.
I always say, why am I doing this when I'm climbing? It's such a long climb, but I love when you're up here, you feel so peaceful.
Yeah.
And just imagining God's presence and fire being up there and
oh, man,
what happened here.
All right, so we made it to, you call this the plateau?
Yeah, it's this basin area, like halfway up, this midpoint where there's this flat spot.
Mount Sinai, you read through the scriptures and you're reading through Exodus and Numbers, and even in the New Testament, you know, Paul mentions Mount Sinai in Arabia.
Yeah, Galatians 4:25.
Yeah, in Galatians 1, he says he came to Arabia, probably just like Elijah came to Mount Horeb, to come and learn from God himself. You know, he had grown up as a Pharisee and, you know, he's a Jew of the Jews. He missed like the main thing in the Old Testament, and that's the picture of the Messiah as we know as Jesus. So here at this place, you think back to Moses and you think back to the thunderings and the lightnings and the ground shaking.
The sound of the trumpets.
I get a sense of that right now. Like, we're at the place that...
You can imagine that happening here. And then it says the fire that went to the very heaven. It says in Exodus 19.
I mean, what a sight. And everything seems to fit. And then also the Bible talks about 70 elders, Moses, Aaron, and...
Hur, and Joshua.
They were all probably, they would have come to this spot because this is a great spot to kind of...
It's like we did. We just had a lunch here.
Yeah.
Said they ate with God in Exodus 24, I believe.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all fitting. Even the top is blackened. You know, we're not saying that it was blackened by the presence of God, but it is curious that the top of this mountain and these mountains right here are basalt, or, it looks like it's volcanic, but
Even though the Arabic name for the mountain, Jebel Makla, means burning or burnt.
yeah.
So-
So, there's so many things that fit here, but we're standing on this mountain that is probably Mount Sinai, also called Horeb, Mount
Yes,
Horeb,
and they call the mountain God.
Mountain of God. Those are the three biblical names, but we also know it as
Jebel Makla, the
Makla,
modern Arabic name for
and
it.
then also Jebel
Jebel
Alaz,
Alaz.
which is kind of the range.
Range is
And Alaz means the
Mountain of the Almonds.
almond. So why would that be the name of this range? Do you know?
Well, there are groves of wild almond trees growing on this mountain range. And what's really interesting is the staff of Aaron was made from an almond branch.
Yeah.
Remember, they rebelling again, and so Moses said, "Okay, we'll see should be the chosen or the leader." And Aaron's rod budded and almond blossoms.
Wow,
So it was
wow.
from an almond tree. And also in the sanctuary service, you have the almond motifs in like the menorah.
Yep.
The 7-branch candlestick, you have almond buds and blossoms used in the gold candlestick.
It's just like
So that stuff comes from the mountain.
unbelievable. So this is really amazing. As you've been doing tours and as you come here, maybe for the first time, what did it feel like to you?
There's a peace here. Usually, like you climb a mountain, you're just all about the climb.
Mhm.
Here, you get there, you get to like this place, or mainly the summit. You just feel like, wow, imagine like God's presence was here at the very top. You could almost feel it. The
Yeah.
same thing that Moses being here felt.
Yeah. To be able to climb it, it's physically exerting. But to think Moses was 80 at least, he climbed it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And then the elders were
70
old, right?
70 elderly.
Yeah, elderly. We never would have found anything, in these areas, but having a guide like you's been great. So you're saying we're going up there. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's our plan. It's a little afternoon. Our
Okay.
goal is to get up there by 2.
Okay.
Gives us an hour and a half to explore the summit,
All right.
and then come on down by 3.
All right.
So-
Nice.
Wow, look at the mountain.
What?
There is the peak.
Oh, that is so cool. Look at that.
The blackened peak of Mount Sinai.
That is so unusual.
It just goes all the way over. See it? 3 peaks have it
Okay. And that's the peak
that we're going up
that we're
today.
going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, we've actually made it.
Andrew, you said just another,
Almost there.
almost there, another 500, just over the next peak.
Here it is.
Yeah, here we go. Made it to the top, at least the south peak.
Yeah,
of
we're here.
Jebel Makla. And this was one of the most physically challenging things I've done for a long time.
Tough climb.
Yeah, but hey, we made it. It's worth it. Absolutely worth it, because we're standing in the place where God's presence was, and the glory of God, the fire of God, right, was right here.
It said it was like a fire ascending to the very heavens. And so you think that would be an amazing sight if you're camped out here like the Israelites or the Midianites to the west. In Albada, you could see this mountain on fire.
And certainly, the shaking, the thundering, the lightning, it must have been quite a sight, and also unsettling a little bit, especially for people who have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I'm remembering the verse where they say, Moses, you speak to us. Do not let God talk to us, or we'll die. And so then they ran back to their tents.
Mm-hmm.
It must have been an awesome display of power up here.
You don't feel like Moses would have come up to the peak? He would have come up into the cloud. What do you feel about that? Where would he have received the 10 Commandments?
The Bible's unclear. It just says God called him further up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't say the summit. We don't know how far down the cloud covered the mountain. But he was close enough that it said in the Hebrews that he feared for his life.
God instructed them to build a tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
And the tabernacle later would become the temple. And it had certain parts of that was very, very holy at the very center. So how does that apply to this mountain?
Yeah, what's very interesting, if you look at the layout of this mountain to where the encampment would be. So here we are on this southern ridge of Jebel Makla. If you start here, if you go eastward, west to east, just like the tabernacle layout.
Yeah.
You have this most holy site on the very top where only Moses was allowed to go up and talk to God. And in the tabernacle, you had a most holy room, this square room where only the high priest would go in once a year. And then from there, moving eastward, you'd go to the holy place where the priests were allowed. And same thing here, you have, going eastward, you have a plateau where they had the 70 elders, Aaron, Joshua, they came up and ate with God. You had the table of showbread there in the tabernacle. And then moving further out, you come to the courtyard where they had the sacrificial system, where they had the altar, burnt offering, and the laver. At the base of this mountain, you have the stream bed going out. And past that, you have an altar site, we believe is the altar of Moses.
Wow.
And then you go further out is the encampment, just like you have in the layout of the sanctuary service. So it's a perfect match. You think of the layout of the mountain to the tabernacle itself.
And the direction, it's another piece of the puzzle. Everything seems to fit right here to this being the place. Even the direction of the top of the mountain all the way down, and having that bench, that plateau where multiple people could sit and observe, and then you have lots of room in the plain for several million people.
Yeah.
So again, all of the puzzle pieces fit together, but this being the very center of God's holiness. Like when we're standing on Mount Sinai, you sense God's holiness, his reverence, his wrath too against sin. It all culminates here because Moses is taking down these 2 tablets that God wrote. I mean, a lot of the Bible, all of the Bible, God breathed through men and moved them along in what to write. But God wrote here and on the wall in Babylon. It's a rare thing when God writes. And so these tablets of the commandments of God, and those are the basic laws, and then they had a lot of other laws for, but these are still things that are important for us today. These are basic things that almost every society observes. You don't steal, you don't lie, you don't kill. And this is where
it all started.
The law comes from.
It was given here, the voice of God. First, he verbally gave it, then he wrote it on stone, showing how permanent it is.
Yeah. This has been one of the big privileges of my life, Andrew, to stand here. And I would never have come here if it weren't for you. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to help you guys out.